What's up, guys? It's your boy Mickey back here again with another episode of content on the 240Sx giveaway car. We're making some serious headway. If you guys have seen the recent videos, we've got the engine out, chassis is ready to go off the paint, and it's now time to focus our attention to the engine and drivetrain. Today, I'm going to be pulling the transmission and all of the extra crap off of the motor, get the motor on the engine stand, and get the subframe disassembled and off the powder coat. This is our current situation. So we've got long block, subframe, suspension corners on both sides. I'm gonna bring you guys along on the journey. I'm gonna go ahead and tear this thing apart and get it up on a stand, hopefully by the end of the day. That's the goal. Let's do this. Alright, so the transmission's off, and I was really concerned about this oil leak on the back of the engine, or back of the transmission, because when we did this motor originally, Calvin and I actually replaced the rear main seal, which usually when you have oil at the bottom of the transmission, it's usually rear main seal. I was hopeful, because I was seeing oil residue at the top up here, that it wasn't the rear main seal, because the car doesn't even have 1,000 miles on it since we did it. So what I found after inspection is we've got a lot of oil leaking from right here, boys. So that's a good sign, and it was dripping down, 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 down. And you can see on the bell housing, you can see where it's got oil pooling all the way down here. And it was leaking out the bottom. So that was what made me kind of think, oh man, maybe the rear main seal wasn't installed properly or something. Can't really screw that up. But the good news is it's a $20 or $30 gasket set away from being solved. We're planning on replacing this valve cover anyway, so a new valve cover seal set is in order. So we're gonna go ahead and get that on the way, and that will fix that leak, which is awesome. I hate leaky engines. Alright guys, well, as you can see, the motor is on the new stand, and now we can start tearing into it, getting it cleaned up, putting on all the new parts. We'll get this intake off, cleaned up. We are going to run this intake manifold because it provides good low-end torque and horsepower on these motors. One thing we found out years ago is that when you go to the bigger sheet metal or cast aftermarket style intake manifolds, is that they really help increase the mid to high RPM power, but we really want this to be motorsport themed car. So for activities such as burnouts and drifting, we want that low end to mid-range torque, which is what this intake will provide. So we're gonna go ahead and get that cleaned up. Steve Beckerman's already pulling his car in to go home for the night, ruining my video. Don't mind me over here just trying to make a video.
The next day.
And I am going to go ahead today and start working on getting these holes patched up. Evan and I are going to probably knock this out today because the car is meant to go off the paint this week. And so we went ahead and just tried to save ourselves some time. We ordered a wheel well tub kit, which is basically what this is. It comes flat in the packaging like that, and basically you weld it together. So we got it all tacked together here. We are only using this, little bits of this to fill in the metal that we're missing. So what I've done is I've actually picked up some poster board, which is here. And what I'm gonna do is make templates out of the poster board, and then we'll transfer the templates over to the metal, and then we'll cut the metal to fit, and then we will go ahead and actually weld that back in to fill up these holes, because it's a quite sizable hole, as you can see here. But again, as we showed you in the previous video, in order to remove the material that stuck out about this far and was visible in the wheel well, you have to cut that out. So we're gonna go ahead and reshape it. Having the little pleats or folds in that material will help actually add strength to it as well. So we'll go ahead and put all that structure back in, and then seam seal, and then re-undercoat inside the wheel wells. When this is done, you shouldn't even really be able to tell that the modification's been done, other than if you know what you're looking at. If you've seen a million 240s before and you looked in there, at that point you probably would be able to notice it, but we're gonna do our best to make it as smooth and sleek as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on making these templates, and yeah, you guys can tag along. Alright, so I've sorted out my final shape, and this is what it looks like. I use the blue tape around the edges to sort of finalize the actual shape, because a lot of times I cut my pattern a little too small, and I use the tape to sort of expand it out. I'm no expert at this. I've only done it a few times, making these type of templates for this type of work. So this is my way of doing it. You may have your own way. I'm sure there's other ways, and even better ways. So you can follow mine if you like. If you have your own way as well, that's good. We're gonna go ahead and transfer this over to the metal, and then start cutting our patch panel.
That's a serious mask.
So transferred the pattern onto the steel and went ahead and cut it out with the help of Evan and Ricky. What's cool is this actually relaxed quite a bit. This was much more curved, but once you cut it off of the big piece, it actually straightens up quite a bit, which is good because that's what we need. We've got our edge that Evan welded up, that's ready to go, and I left this area really fat. We don't need this much material, but I wanted to keep extra. So what we'll do is probably get this tacked into place, start hammering it up snug, and then we'll go back and trim everything down with the cutoff wheel. All right, so now you can see this is just wedged into place at the moment, but that's our patch panel. I did have a little screw up right here, so we're gonna have to make a little patch panel that'll go in there, which is fine. But this rebox is in the frame rail across where we cut, and then this, like I said, I left fat, so that we'll weld all this up, and then we'll get tacks on top and bottom, and maybe some tacks back here, and I'll go ahead and grind that away, and then we'll do a nice finish weld across there. So once this is all back in place, we should retain the structural integrity of the car, make a nice usable area. We did check with the clutch pedal to make sure we don't have any pedal throw issues. So far so good. Once this is all welded up, we'll move on to the passenger side. Luke, I am your father. Alright, so panel's now packed in place pretty well. Got everything shaped up in there, so now we can go ahead and weld this all up. Rebox in our frame rail, or subframe rail, and I have to build a little patch for up there. But I left this long here. We'll go ahead and sand this down to get the hard edge off of it. And basically what that'll act as is the fender will lay over top of that, and it'll keep any rocks and debris from going into the door jamb area. It's a really big pet peeve of mine, so we'll try to do that on both sides to make sure that we can reduce the amount of rocks that get into the door jamb area, which eventually ends up scratching your paint every time you open your door and stuff down at the base. So this should help with that. Alright guys, so I've gone ahead and cleaned up the welds a little bit and went ahead and seam sealed. All the black you see in here is 3M seam sealer, and basically what I've done is covered all of our welds in seam sealer. That way, if there's any little pinholes or anything in those TIG welds, we've got them filled with a little bit of seam sealer. That way none of the elements can get into the cockpit of the car. I went ahead and seam sealed the back of this as well with a nice heavy coat of seam seal, so that the back side of this, if any water gets up in here and drips down, it's not going to find its way into the floor pan and create a pond inside the car. So I've gone ahead and also resealed around our, this is our patch panel basically here, but it goes right around where this harness goes. Now this harness has to get tucked up as high as possible. One of the Achilles heels of 240s is when you lower them, this harness becomes a real issue because it hangs down right above the tire. And as you can see, this one's already seen some damage up here, basically just into the plastic shielding that's around the wiring. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll actually move the wiring up above the frame rail. But in order to do that, we'll push the rubber grommet back into the firewall where we've modified it, and then raise it up as high as we can and go over top of the frame rail to keep it up out of harm's way, to make sure we don't have any issues with the tire making contact with that and destroying the wiring in the car. So anyway, I've got a layer of weldable primer on here as well, so that's all sealed. And now we can go ahead and give this seam sealer 24 hours to dry, and yeah, it'll be drying while it's at the paint shop, I guess. So while they're doing their prep work on the car, that will be curing up, and then we'll move on. Now we'll move on to the other side, where Evan has been using our badass Lincoln electric welder to get this side tacked in for the time being. He's taking a little break because he's been underneath the wheel well for a while now. So I'm gonna go ahead and let him have his break, and then when he's done welding, I'll go ahead and prep the other side as well. At that point, we're done with this portion of the job, and we can move on to getting this thing to paint. Oh, did you guys notice that hood? Ooh, it's nice. Thanks to Cybon Carbon. We got some great bits coming for this car. I can't wait for you guys to see the rest of it. Alright guys, so I just went ahead and finished up seam sealing this new panel into place. I really like how the lines for the tub were actually nice and straight here. Both sides, it worked out really good. So we're sealed front and rear, all welded in. And I went ahead and slapped the fender on over here so you can see how that works out. Now you can see that once we put this thing on the wheels on the ground, this is no longer going to be a problem because it goes straight back. What's nice is this rests right against that metal and seals off the door jamb from any debris and rocks. Just the way I like it, boys. Before we call it a wrap, I want to go ahead and show you guys the new hood. It's so sick. This is from our friends over at Cybon. Evan and I were taking a look through their catalog, and we really like this hood. A couple of the things we like about it are the vents. So the vents are very aggressive on here. We are going to get rid of these, probably have those filled. What we do like is that we've got air in and air out. So it's going to create a lot of flow of air over the engine and the turbo system, and allows it to air out. We've also got these cool GTR style NACA duct type inlets here on each side as well. Those look pretty cool. I think it's very Nissan family, stealing those design cues from the GTR. Overall, pretty aggressive look, I think, and suits this car really well. It suits the overall end game look that I'm looking for with the car. So shout out to Saibon for making a super nice hood. The underneath of this thing is pretty much just as nice as the top. Has their little badging under there so you know it's an authentic piece. Shout out to Saibon Carbon. If you are in the market for one, check out throtl. We do sell them, and I don't think you'll find a better price, so check it out. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. As the progress continues on the 240, I'm really looking forward to getting this thing off to the paint shop in the coming days, maybe even tomorrow. So we'll see you guys next time. Leave us a comment down below. Let us know what we should do with the hood. Should we paint it? Should we leave it? Should we paint it and leave some carbon see-through on some of the areas? I know what I want to do, but I want to hear what you guys think. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. See you next time.